meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you everyone for coming. Brzezinski, do we have anyone signed up?
No.
No. Perfect. Do we have any board or committee reports?
I'm going to the legislative breakfast last Saturday. Valerie. There was a pretty in-depth PowerPoint that the representative from Lakeshore and Sweet Home took us through. For each one of the short-term and long-term goals, there's either an individual slide or 2 to 3 slides. I'll just read off the short-term goals and long-term goals, and then I'll turn this into a PDF and ask Ms. Custody to get around everybody. So the short-term goals of the committee are COVID-19. Foundation came up a great deal. BOCES, special ed, broadband access, got a lot of talk. Charter schools, and Ms. Brzezinski, you might understand this one. Lakeshore hit a mega millions lottery winner, and that affected their funding negatively, like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's going to be a problem when I win.
Me too.
I'm not sure I understood it, but this mega millions winner negatively affected their tax base.
I would guess it maybe affected their cost-wealth ratio, which makes them not as, like, it increases their wealth in the district, which may result in lower aid ratios. Poor districts or less wealthy districts have higher aid ratios. A lot of that's based on not only the population of your students, but also the income of your town and your residents. So if your average wealth went up millions of dollars, you wouldn't have the same ratio that would affect your aid.
And that might be Lakeshore.
I don't know how long it would take for that to be captured, but
yeah, the combined wealth ratio is a combined metric from the property values in the district and the income level of the district. So normally most school districts around here are around 1, which is average within the state. But if they bump up, that would mean that in the formula and how it works, they would have had less aid allocated to them based on the state aid formula. So it could be a double whammy. The winner had a higher income and maybe they built a nice big property too, which could have affected it 2 ways on both sides of that metric.
Well, that was a niche issue for Lakeshore then. Public schools going up for charter school applications again. Long-term goals, again, funding came up, foundation came up, special ed, teacher shortage, I've talked a lot, long-term goals, addressing other staffing shortages, and some comments about the administrative burden of doing building level reporting as opposed to doing district-wide reporting. Chairman Dan was there. Our summer person actually sat next to me, and Ed Brad was a couple of tables over, but it was a good turnout from a politician standpoint. So like I said, I'll turn this into a PDF and get it around everybody.
Thank you.
I can send that out to everyone.
Oh, okay, thanks, Dave. Excuse my underlines and stars.
Good. I used to buy used books in college, so this will be helpful.
Do we have anyone else? All right, we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Well, I was sorry that you didn't have a co-pilot at the legislative breakfast. Some of us have been battling some colds, nothing COVID related, of course, but still erring on the side of caution. But I was really proud our administrative team all kind of pitched in for our vaccination clinic, and we had over 390 5 to 11-year-olds register for our clinic that we held, with the first dose being administered on Saturday. Mrs. Brzezinski, Mr. Delisle, Dr. Shanahan, who are all here, jumped in to help with facilitating a very successful day We ended up getting actual people that showed up were a little bit less than 350 because some people ended up coming down with colds and didn't come, or at the last minute changed their mind. But what was nice is yesterday I received a nice letter from the Erie County Department of Health commending us for our efforts in making the vaccine available for our community, as well as the partnership that we forged with Rite Aid to be able to do so. So that was a nice email that I got yesterday from Dr. Burstein.
Was that all students in our district?
Yes.
We didn't open it up beyond our kids?
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. There's a lot of kids.
Yeah, it was very successful, and as you can imagine, we had a lot of planning that went into it. Of course, we've done different clinics for 12 and up, as well as staff, again, through our partnership with Rite Aid. One of our parents, Kim Henry, is a pharmacist with Rite Aid and a store manager, and she's been fantastic. But this one, given the ages of the kids, was a little bit different. It required a little bit more planning, and it was nice that it went off without a hitch and that we had a very successful turnout. So yeah, it was good. But also, I would mention the next item I have in the superintendent's report, that was sort of an ad lib one that was hot off the presses. We also have a report tonight from Dr. Shanahan and Dr. Otto on the integrated co-teaching program that you all recall last year supported in budget development, a pretty significant change in our integrated co-teaching approach and our model. And we have that up and running so far this year, and Dr. Shanahan and Dr. Otto are here to give us an update.
Well, thank you for having us. It's so nice to be here. We're really excited to share what we've been doing since we last met. The last time we met, I think we shared with you some of the changes we were hoping to do. So we have since been very busy with hiring and trying to get our professional development in place. Lynn and I met with a whole group of administrators this summer to come up with a plan. And so we've been hard at work trying to develop that plan throughout. So we're going to give you some highlights. Just so you kind of anticipate what we're going to be going through for tonight. We're going to start just by reviewing some of the changes that we discussed back in the spring and what our rationale was for why we were making those changes. And then Lynn is going to go through the professional development plan that we started over the summer and that we've continued throughout this year and what we're looking to do as the years go through. So we'll start with the programmatic changes. And again, this is just a review, but as you know, we have proposed hiring several teachers at the elementary and at the secondary level. At Windermere, we ended up hiring 3 teachers at Windermere. And those teachers are, as you know, replacing some of the TAs. So what we had previously was we had a TA that would be working in the classroom outside of those core subject areas, and the special education teacher was in there for the core subject areas, and then they kind of flip-flop, which we have strong, exceptional TAs. But what we were finding is it's hard to do that collaboration and to do it well. So to make sure that we're having that consistency, especially knowing that we have students coming off of a year like no other, we wanted to make sure we had teachers in there that could provide that specially designed instruction. We want the most trained staff with our neediest students. So that was our rationale for that. So now we have that full-time support in the classroom. The feedback we got from teachers is that they are loving being in the room with the students and making sure that they can address their needs instantaneously if they're coming up. They're not having to check in with the TA about what happened in the last portion of the day and trying to catch them on the fly to determine what needs to be done to adjust. The general education teachers are having that support throughout the day, which is helping with that consistent instruction. The other thing is, with regard to our special design instruction, we know our special educators are the ones that know how to special design instruction. That is their training. They know how to modify, they know how to accommodate, they know how to make sure that the level of instruction is matching what our students need. So additionally, we know this is going to help address our academic and social emotional needs of our students because their training is set to do just that. Within this, the other thing that we did at Smallwood, same thing, so 2 special education teachers were hired to allow us to have that full integrated model. But the other piece we did is within our self-contained classrooms. So we have 813s at Smallwood and 812s now at Windermere. We added a teaching assistant to each of those rooms for a couple of different reasons. One is it allows for additional instruction within a small group for those classrooms. But the other reason is it's allowing us to have more fluidity with our program. We want students to be able to access the integrated setting. That's always our goal. What we were finding is we didn't have the support staff in some of our behavioral classrooms to allow that to happen easily. So one of the ways we were able to do that is by reallocating some of the TAs that were displaced from the integrated co-teaching switch into those classrooms to provide that greater support, which ultimately will allow those students more access to their peers, more social emotional support, and more academic support within the classroom. So that's kind of the elementary. The middle school, same philosophy. We did hire 3 special education teachers at the middle school. Again, this is to make our model more fully integrated, so we're able to add those teachers at the science level. So now, instead of there being a TA for science, we have a specialized instructor that's working again on that specially designed instruction, allowing for that greater consistency. The other thing that it allowed us to do, we shifted one of our programs. So we started to do what we're calling an academic inclusion program, which is allowing greater small group support for our students. The way we were able to do that is by adding, it allowed us to add sections to our integrated co-teaching classrooms because our integrated co-teachers were providing resource room. By adding this program, it took one of the resource rooms away from them so they could have additional sections of integrated co-teaching, which then again allowed them to have smaller ratios of students with special education needs so they could more individualize and tailor the instruction. So that was one of the added advantages, which also in turn leads us to have greater ability to vertically align our buildings. So our middle school is now going to flow seamlessly into our high school where we already have a very similar program of academic inclusion. So those were 2 of the things that we did there. Again, we were able to reallocate some of those TAs to support that academic inclusion program, and it's allowing us greater fluidity and a greater ability to collaborate with our teachers across these different buildings. And then finally, at the high school, we hired 1 special education teacher to support integrated co-teaching for math, which is again, just extending our continuum, allowing us to have more integrated co-teaching and more skilled professionals that are trained to do special design instruction across all of our levels. So now that we've had all these great people and we hired all these people throughout the spring, we were hard at work in the spring with the administrative team to come up with, okay, how do we make these people our resources so that we have great teachers that are available for our students and so that we can prepare our students to move onward. So I'm going to turn it to Lynn. She's going to review some of our professional development.
So Maria and I have worked in tandem on this, and it's been really a rewarding work that we've done so far. So the first thing we wanted to do when we were talking about building a strong system, because just putting people in places doesn't mean that the instruction is going to be better, right? So we have to have a clear vision as a district and as a building, and then put down to the teachers all through every level in order to get changes in increased student learning. So Maria and I started out by having one administrator from every building work with us throughout the summer into what does effective co-teaching look like, what are the models of co-teaching, how do you help the 2 people together in a classroom. It has to be, it's like a marriage. They have to be able to get along, give and take, critique each other, but keep a really solid relationship going at the same time. So what does that look like and what are those expectations? Because the last thing we would want for this human resource is to have one person up doing all the teaching and the other person hanging to the side. So we're very proactive on that. This summer, we put all of our administrators, we trained all the administrators in the district as to what does good co-teaching look like, what are the effective models of co-teaching, and what does inclusion mean and how does it look in the district. So that, Mr. Pinella gave us time during the administrative retreat to do that training, so all the administrators can now carry out this work in their own buildings. It's not Maria and I, it's the whole district. So from there, the next level was we needed to get all the teachers on board. These were experienced teachers with co-teaching and inexperienced teachers both, but the partners together had to go through. They could not attend this separately. We ran multiple sessions so so that we could get everybody, co-teachers in the room at the same time together as partners. So we ran a summer institute. For the people who couldn't attend, we did it again on the 16th. We had 2 people left, and Maria, Dr. Otto
As of
finished them
11:29.
today. Every co-teaching pair has now been trained with the same information this year on effective co-teaching models, effective co-planning, so that they know what it should look like. And they'll grow over time in how they apply those models, where and when they should apply those models. There are also other issues with special ed, Maria calls it Special Ed 101, which are just different tasks that you have to do as a special education teacher, and we did onboard a lot of new special education teachers this year. So what are the expectations around writing reports at Amherst, talking around digital assessment. So there are multiple topics that we handled recently on our professional development day on November 2nd for that. And then moving forward, so you have this training, right, around the Summer Institute and those other days that follow. That's not sustained. So that means we won't have any systemic change. So we have Stephanie Baxter, who actually came in and trained our admin team, so we were trained as well. She coaches now. She will go in for, is it 90 minutes now or 2 hours?
About 90 minutes.
About 90 minutes, she will go in and work with the co-teaching pairs at whatever level they want. They can watch her, she can observe them, she can co-plan with them, they can talk about specific students. So actually enacting everything they learn. So she will be in several times across the year to go in and just work with those partners to work on their effectiveness in the classroom. Following up on the building level, we have a co-teaching book club that will start in January, where the partners will meet together with their building principals, and that will be run by the instructional leadership at the building level. And then we have ongoing professional development that's long-term that we'll talk about as well as we move forward. So there's a lot from the administrative level to the teacher's level to the co-teaching. So none of this happens quickly, and if it does, school districts are historically, not us, but they will start a project and let it go after a year. But people haven't really had time to learn whatever it is they're trying to tackle on an in-depth level. So Maria and I have proposed a 4-year plan starting with this year where we taught the co-teaching models, and we are looking at onboarding them. How do we bring them into the district? How do we get them to know the software, the applications, the different systems that we're using as well? And then for the next 2 years, we're going to specifically focus on specially designed instruction. So students who, are learning differently, it's not that they can't learn, we just have to be able to teach them in the way that they learn that information. So that's good planning and good teaching. So we'll be working on that with a sustained plan with continued coaching sessions across the school year in 22, 23, 22, and then 23, and then 23, 24. So we'll have coaching going on there as well. And we will be collecting data along the way to see if we have any increase in student learning, which is obviously the end goal. I came to you several years ago talking about the Every Student Succeeds Act, and the fact that our students with disabilities, that subpopulation, we would like to see the learning increase more than it is right now. And so this plan will also address that, and we will be looking at the data over time. We give screening data and diagnostic data to all of our students on a regular basis, and we'll be monitoring that because we want to know that the professional development has been effective. So we'll come back and report to you about that as well. And that's it. Questions?
Is it natural? Is it easier in lower grades versus higher grades, or vice versa, to implement this?
I don't think it's easier. I just think if you think of older grades versus, more elementary ages, you typically think of middle school and high school where a person is teaching. So I think there's like just a vision in your head you have to get out. Like, how can you team that lesson together? Or there's another model called parallel teaching, where I might start teaching a concept together, and then we teach the same concept, but we run it simultaneously with 2 small groups. What it does is it allows to touch those kids more as far as getting contact that I need to reinforce and provide them with feedback. So what we have to do is teach them how to use those models in a middle school and high school classroom. you just don't see them as much there, but that's what we're working on. Like, for example, in science, the person that I've been working with science has been doing that weekly with our teachers and trying to get them to try and experiment with that. So I think what we know over time is middle school, high school, you see less of that, but it can all be done there. It's a matter of, this is why we have the 4-year plan, because we think it's going to take that long to shift some of those practices. Not what you
Yeah, I was just gonna, it's a paradigm shift. It's not that it's easier or harder. I think if you were to step into an elementary classroom, you would be used to seeing stations, and that would feel like commonplace. You don't see it as much at middle school and high school, and sometimes what you'll see is like teachers may be more prone to say, well, this student is really struggling. We're challenging them to think about, okay, well, instructionally, how could you change this so the student is more engaged? So I wouldn't say it's elementary, middle, or high. I think it's just a matter of getting people to kind of shift and think about what's their instructional objective and how can you best use these models to reach them. And so that's what we've been working on in this training, is teaching them what the models are and then helping them to see how this congruent with the essential elements and how they can use that as their vehicle to reach the objective.
What is our resource room and CR's classroom?
Yeah, so we're looking to, yeah, sorry, I tried to catch
I always
on
have
some
to ask the same
of them. Lynn
question.
asked me the same thing, and I was like, I need to stop using these abbreviations, but RR is resource room, and then CR is classroom, and then at the end, the transition is just elementary school, middle school, high school, trying to make sure we have that vertical alignment.
And our goal is really to hone in on the instruction before we start shifting too many things, because if you can increase the efficacy of the instruction, you may not need to move a whole lot of other structural issues. That's why the structural piece is at the end, and 24, 25.
Well, I appreciate the board's support relative to the 9 teachers we needed to add to put this program in place. And, hopefully we're demonstrating that we're doing it in a very thoughtful and thorough manner, focused on improving outcomes for kids. I also mentioned to the team back in the spring when we were putting this together that although our focus is integrated co-teaching and our special education subpopulation, the fact that we have 2 teachers in the classroom in multiple classrooms across the district for an entire day should increase outcomes for all kids, because we have, integrated classrooms with roughly 40% or less of the student population identified with an IEP, but that means we have, 60% or more students in the classroom that are also benefiting from highly differentiated, specialized instruction from 2 highly qualified instructors. So I appreciate your support with this initiative. We'll continue to report out to you, over the course of this timeline. But I'm also very appreciative of our team for being very thoughtful and thorough and identifying the fact that this takes time to implement well and really pacing it out over time as to not overwhelm people. So kudos to you all. Thank you. That's the last item in the superintendent's report for tonight.
Great. We will need a motion for new business items.
I'll make a motion to approve business items 1A through N, 2A through E, and 3B, C, D, and G.
We have a second.
Hold on a second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving new business items E1A through N, 2A through E, and 3B, C, D, and G, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I'd like to just say congratulations to Mr. Belisle on his tenure. Very nice job. Also, I don't know if we have any new team members in the audience here, but welcome aboard if we do. I see we have some new ones we're adding on here. With that, do we have any follow-up action items? I'm sorry? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I mentioned, we have Mr. Lowry here tonight from Erie County School Boards Association. And I'd like to, first of all, say thank you for coming. It's nice to see some people in the audience. Also, thank you for the chocolate, although my box is empty. And the t-shirts. We do appreciate it. Thank you, Dave.
You ate that whole thing already?
What's that?
Ate that whole thing already?
I was empty.
Nothing.
Superintendent's report is over.
Mrs. Bazinski, do we have any follow-up action minutes? I don't know.
We're gonna share the PDF from the legislative breakfast.
Great. Then we will need a motion to go to executive session.
I'll make a motion in the executive session regarding employment of a particular person.
Do we have a second? Mr. Beulah? All those in favor of convening to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody, for coming.